I loved that it opened up on all of these beautiful shots of water and this footage of rivers and lakes. Just gorgeous shots opening us up to this documentary on how important water is to our life and to the earth, how it's the lifeblood of every living thing on this earth. I thought that was really cool. It was a great opening to this doc. I really appreciated how we delved into the history behind our water in America and how important these native tribes were to the conservation of water and how awfully they were affected by the interfering with our rivers and lakes and all these dams and things that we put in place that negatively affected the water, and how that especially affected these native tribes who rely on water for their livelihood. I also loved that in this documentary we were introduced to every lake and river and um, stream by their native name first, and then by their sort of more widely known name, and how we have the name of everything, every river that we were shown. I thought that was really cool. It made everything a lot more personal and real. We sort of saw how each river had been negatively affected, and I thought that was really important to show. It made everything a lot more real.
To me, this documentary serves as another reminder of how America is an invasive country that stole the land from native tribes. The government does not help them at all. I learned the role all the rivers and lakes and dams play on their lifestyles, whether it's a tribe in the north or the south, or the Missouri River versus the Cheyenne River. Regardless, the water is getting contaminated and the levels are decreasing. Species of life are becoming extinct because of this, and also natives are being pushed out of their reservoirs. There is no respect shown to the native people. It's really sad to see the abuse going on. I enjoy how each interviewee kind of dove into their tribe's history to show how important the water is to them. You can tell none of it is made up, and it amazes me to see that they don't ask for a lot, with one citing and her tribe just showing respect is meaningful enough. This felt like it was more than native a culture, but also about their identity, economics, lifestyle, and geography. The cinematography is really good. The strongest parts are when you see the different bodies of waters like the rivers, dams, and lakes as the people being interviewed or talking in the background. As the drones are flying high up in the sky so you can see the water, it feels really vast and big on camera. And they want you to realize how big it is of a topic to the Native Americans. This isn't small. This is the fate and the future of one's lives. It's a very serious, important moment in American culture that needs to see change, or the consequences can be detrimental. The sound for the dialogue is good. There is a variety of soundtracks that avoid redundancy. I think it's interesting that many tribes are very modern. They dress like they live like everyone else, but they get treated like they are still in the 1800s, and that's really sad to see.
I thought that there's a lot of very interesting historical information and backdrop brought by the subjects in terms of the nature of the tribes and the nature of how a lot of the history of all the tribes have been changed because the land has been changed and how much of the land was central to the identity within the culture. I believe there was a story of a woman reflecting her namesake and how it comes from a different time period that it would not necessarily be relevant now that the land has been changed so dramatically. And I thought that the piece worked well, not just reflecting these personal stories of these tribes, but the big picture story of humanity's relationship with native cultures, humanity's relationship with nature in general. And I thought that a lot of the consequences that have a lot of very deep historical roots were reflected in this piece in a very authentic way, mainly because of the subjects and their personal experiences and historical knowledge that was backed up by a lot of family history that made the piece very authentic and compelling in terms of reflecting the stark realities and the very stark abuses at the core of the issues at the piece. So I thought the piece was very well done, worked both on an emotional level and as a call to action. And I thought the piece worked well because the subjects were so authentic and reflecting the struggles of both of their personal stories, the tribes, and the big picture dynamic around nature and human interaction.
There's so many parts of this doc that stood out to me. To me, everything felt very complicated and like we were on a journey. And I felt really moved seeing the ways that intergenerational knowledge is being passed down, like how to like gut fish or how to be good stewards to the land. And for me, it was really inspiring to see a younger generation so aware of the land and what she needs. But I also was feeling very heartbroken that this is something that this younger generation has to be aware of. Or I guess the way in which they have to be aware of it, right? Because a lot of that is ancestral knowledge. But I think the part that's a little bit heartbreaking for me was that this younger generation seems to be so keenly aware of the need to fight for water rights and treaty rights and land restoration because of the impacts and consequences of colonization, and that this labor is unfortunately just systematically put on. But like I said, it is very hopeful and moving to see. I also was really moved by this repetition of the phrase and the notion that water has memory. And throughout this doc, I felt like I was also learning about how water is responding to that memory, or how water is keeping that memory. Whether that was with salmon, or whether that's, watching how the water sort of changes and reacts.
Guest speakers who were so well versed on their facts and philosophy of the history of the river. Two important takeaways I felt were the words from Josiah, who spoke to the complications of dam management. If you take the dam away, there's consequences versus the consequences of keeping the dam. And those have to be looked at by all involved. Also, Emily from the Yakama Tribe was speaking to the native language of the elders and how they have 1,000 years of a data set for land history and what's happened over the time of climate change, and how that can be cost effective by letting them educate us in how to get the problem solved.
A concept such as water should be a basic necessity for the people of your country. Yet, when it comes to certain demographics, it sometimes feels like it's more of an option. If you can't afford to be in a better paying area, then necessities such as water are seen more as an option, because what are you going to be able to do about it? But when money is involved, then it feels like there's more of a willingness to listen, because now there's actual risk and threat. And I do not agree with that mindset. I do not agree with that concept. Where you are financially, or the color of your skin, or where you're from, everyone should be treated equal. It shouldn't matter where you live. And I think that message needs to get out more. So I think that this documentary, it was very important to showcase why it's so important for everyone to have fresh, clean water.
They gave us fantastic footage from several water bodies, how the pollution and water management inefficiency are disrupting the interconnections between our survival and water. They also touch on the pipeline in Dakota, how water distribution and mismanagement in allocation laws are effectively destroying the tribes that are the initial owners of these lands. How and who gets access to the water? It's kind of tricky, and they explain it, and it's just how the rivers, lakes, and reservoirs can have negative effects if humans disrupt and the repercussions of on land food supply and weather events like floodings or lack of rain during droughts. It's amazing to see the efforts that mostly tribal communities are doing to obtain fair and humane access to water. And this has been how the tribes use, or indigenous communities use, the natural resources. Even with multiple interests at place, they showcase the tribal resilience and knowledge, and how they are experts on prioritizing nature's systems or nature's ways, with the Klamath Tribe example being one of the worst, where mismanagement is just destructive.